Hello, everybody. I finally got the chance to go on a cruise. I had been trying during the whole summer. Every time I planned it, it either rained or the temperature was so high that I refused to leave the house. Before I get on the ship, I'm walking by the Kennebec River and I'm killing some time and just enjoying nature. As I'm walking around, I can see the ship is already docked and just getting ready before they allow all the people to get on. I've decided to stay close by the dock because I really wanted to sit upstairs out in the open, and I think the ship was full, so I stayed by the dock until they started calling out names.
The Merry Meeting. My name's Dave. I'm the captain on this approximately 1-hour tour. Ben's up in the upper deck with me and will be pointing out various things of interest, potentially some wildlife and some lighthouses, etc. So a couple things. We are at Coast Guard capacity on the upper deck. We cannot take anybody else up here unless other people decide that they would like to be down below and stay down. With that restriction, you are free to move around both decks. You can go up and down the upper deck, the people that are up here. For your convenience, we have 2 heads, marine toilets on the main deck, and they are forward of the main cabin, to the port, and to the starboard, to left and right. I forgot to mention that Bob is manning the Bay Cafe. Should you like any light snacks, tea, coffee, beer, wine. So with that said, I'm going to be quiet for a minute. We'll get down to see our first point of interest.
Knobscot. Kennebec River, which runs north and south through the state. We're heading south right now toward the ocean, and if we kept going about 10 miles, we'd end up in the Gulf of Maine, the Atlantic Ocean. That's 10 miles straight ahead of us. The origin of the river, the headwaters, are behind us, north, about 150 miles up at Moosehead Lake. So anyway, a lot of fresh water flowing downriver to where we are now. It mixes with salt water that comes in with the tide. This is a very tidal river. A lot of current in this river, and it counts for an interesting environment for wildlife and that sort of thing. But anyway, the water beneath us is brackish. It's a mixture of salt and fresh water. Off our right side, or the starboard side of the boat, that land over there is the mainland. That's a long, skinny peninsula that runs north and south. It's called the Phippsburg Peninsula. And off our port side, the left side of the boat, This is an island. It's a big island. You would mistake it easily for the mainland, but it's called a Rousing Island. And if we did go all the way to the ocean, Rousing would eventually be replaced by Georgetown Island, which continues on down to the ocean. So anyway, that's where we are, you name it. So anyway, a long history of human activity out here on the Kennebec River. So off our port side now, the left side, we can see the beginnings of a light station. This is called Doubling Point Light Station. Doubling Point, this little section of Aroustic Island, gets its name because the river makes a double set of turns, doubling point, over about the next half mile. It actually runs east and west for a short period here. But Doubling Point Light Station has been around since 1898. That's the same year that all the lighthouses were constructed here on the Kennebec River. Back in the 1850s to 1890s, generally that time period, Bath, the city of Bath, was a very vibrant seaport, not only building ships, but sending ships all around the world with cargo from Maine, bringing back cargo from foreign ports. So there was a lot of ship traffic out here on the river. And the idea was, let's try to help these ships out, build all these aids to navigation, try to keep them on the water and off the rocks. And so that was the thinking behind it. But these were originally fully staffed stations. They're no longer in need of a lightkeeper. They're all automated at this point. But the U.S. Coast Guard comes out and maintains the lights on all these stations. And various nonprofit historical groups take care of the lightkeeper's house, all that kind of thing. So that is Doubling Point Light Station here on Aroustic Island. And I mentioned we have just now entered a short section of river that runs east and west. We're headed east at the moment. This is called Fiddler's Reach, and I'll tell you in a little while why they call it that. Keep you in suspense for a bit. Just off our port side, the left side here, right at the shoreline, you see that kind of unusually shaped structure. That's a fog bell tower, but really came into its own in the mid-19th century. Shipbuilding was a huge thing around here, and this whole waterfront back in mid to late 19th century would have been covered with all kinds of businesses supporting shipping and shipbuilding. You would have seen sail makers and anchor chain foundries, admiralty lawyers, ship's chandleries, anything supporting that work. So a very busy place, a lot of money coming into the city of Bath during that time. If you happen to wander around town, you'll see some beautiful admiralty lawyers, ship's chandleries, anything supporting that work. So a very busy place, a lot of money coming into the city of Bath during that time. If you happen to wander around town, you'll see some beautiful, or do we not? Now, urban renewal money was, when towns accepted it, it often meant that they would just tear down all these old buildings. There wasn't quite the appreciation for historic preservation during that time. And in any event, Bath elected not to take urban renewal money, and instead they focused on preserving the 19th century architecture downtown. And today we're glad they did, because it all ends up with a very well-preserved downtown that looks a lot like it did well over 100 years ago. the Woolwich side, the eastern side of the river here, you see that pier with some construction equipment. That is the location brought to the city of Bath, etc. One of the big export products, really up until about the 1920s, 1930s, was ice. They would chop ice out of the pure fresh water north of us here on the river. They would pack these big ice chunks in the holds of ships using sawdust as an insulator, and then they were able to ship that ice all the way around the world. Kennebec River ice was known for its exceptional purity and clarity, and it was a big money maker. They called it white gold. In fact, it was so profitable. But once refrigeration came around in the 1920s and 30s, that ice business pretty much went away. But anyway, we're passing, of course, beneath the two bridges, and we'll get a good look here at Bath Ironworks once again as we go by.